Hey guys, welcome back to the Jasmine Ortiz show. I'm here once again with my lovely co-host Jordy Polycarp. Today we're going to discuss a multitude of topics, including male-dominated industries and how women can succeed and work in them. You know, I'm in Latin music, Jordy's in the alternative R&B space, so there's a lot of nuance there as well, especially when it comes to wearing our hats as producers in the studio setting. So more on that in a little bit. First, I want to talk about some current events, specifically something that occurred at the Hollywood Bowl last week. Northwest, not the direction, the person, was performing in a Hollywood Bowl rendition of The Lion King. I was under the impression that this is a full-fledged professional, performance of this show, and people were paying customers with tickets for this event. Also, Northwest was a surprise lead that audience members were not aware of until hours or maybe a day before the show.
That I didn't know.
Yeah, so she was not on the original billing whatsoever. She was a, quote, surprise lead, and the advertisement on social media said, featuring surprise lead, Northwest, or whatever. I just wonder how much those tickets were and the people felt when they saw that.
Yeah.
Because the performance was something.
I'm sure they were maybe excited. They were like, this will be fun. She's probably been training for this, right?
Yeah.
She probably practiced, right? And again, this is a child, so I want to preface this by saying, like, she will always be, like, learning, and I think it's great that kids get to experience things like this, but also I think they put her on stage unprepared, and very clearly this is the bad side of nepotism. I don't think nepotism is always a bad thing, but this one, it didn't work.
I think specifically, like you said, to preface, North is a child. Like, it's not her fault that she was put into the situation by adults that should have guided her better. This was not a community production. This was not a middle school play. This was not at home for her friends in her backyard, where they probably could have paid for a nice production quality as well if she just wanted to do this for fun. This was a professional endeavor that should have been taken more seriously from all parties. You can just see on the other actors' faces, like, the disappointment and frustration that they were probably feeling in this moment, because they're having to guide and almost teach the lead actress in the starring role what her blocking is and what motions to be doing, and they're kind of just like parading her around the stage like she doesn't know what's going on. And not only that, it's also disrespectful to the production, the production team, the director, costume designers, the other actors, and other child performers who have spent their entire young lives dedicating themselves to honing this craft. Whereas, like you said, if I saw a famous child's name on a production, I would assume, because they have the resources to be honing this craft, they have all the money in the world to go to dance classes, to go to the rehearsals, to homeschool and focus on the arts. Even more impetus for them to have an incredible performance versus something that genuinely felt like it should have been performed at home in her living room.
Yeah.
And even in the sweatpants to boot. Yeah, and the sweatpants to boot. It felt like, you know, when a kid gets picked out of the audience at random for audience participation, that's what it felt like. It's like, like you over there, like, come up here. You know the song, sing along the words. That's what it felt like. And I was just like, my God.
That's really
unfortunate. It was painful to watch. And a lot of celebrity kids have these awkward moments as kids. Like, even Willow Smith with Whip My Hair Back and Forth. That was an awkward moment. But she's a super talented performer and musician that just needed the time and experience to hone her craft. And unfortunately, maybe her parents pushed her out the door a little too quick in the industry. Maybe she was just kind of forced or encouraged in this way that she wasn't allowed a gestation period. She wasn't allowed a time to train and hone that skill before she was put in the limelight.
Yeah, because I think it's especially important for kids to be able to, you don't want them to fail, and you don't want them to fail in such a public way. I think it's different when, if you're trying to, regardless of who you are, and if your kid is benefiting from nepotism, I think you should be always championing them, and uh making sure that you're like fostering their like spark and whatever they want to do. So if like she was like, "Yeah, I would love to act." And they're like, "Okay, great. Let's figure that out for you." But just kind of like throwing her to the wolves, I think did not work. And it reminds me of
Yeah.
how Blue Ivy joined the Renaissance tour and got seriously made fun of online and by grown adults making fun of this child. And what ended up being the outcome was at least that she put in the work. Like she herself like went through the training and like trained with the other dancers and like got better at the choreography, and really she became a really great part of the show, and people were excited that Blue Ivy was on stage. And I feel like that just shows how you teach your kid to like overcome adversity and just to try their best to be whatever they want to be. But in this
Yeah.
case, it just feels like they just kind of threw her to the wolves. Maybe she'll also get better, but I don't
I
know.
also think you have to take into account like who Beyonce and Kim are as individuals, as maybe personalities. Beyonce's obviously an artist and performer, and how they were brought up. Beyonce was put to work very young and was taught an intense work ethic and drive from the time she was in Destiny's Child. So she never really had that moment of just being thrown into the spotlight without any training, without any sort of honing of that skill, because she was honing that skill from a very young age at her home every single day, with her parents being extremely strict, like drilling rehearsals day in, day out. And that's why they were successful. And obviously, like, a child deserves to have a childhood. If that's not something that the child wants to do, that shouldn't be enforced on them at all. But in this situation with Blue Ivy or Northwest, like, they have more than enough resources to do this even part of their time. So the fact that Blue Ivy took the criticism in stride, and Beyonce even was quoted saying to her, "Go and work harder," that shows the difference between like someone who almost feels entitled to just be places and be inserted into anything that they feel they want to be inserted into, versus someone who has earned their spot in the industry and knows the work that goes into it and doesn't want her daughter to think that there's no work involved. I think
Exactly.
that's a huge difference, because you've seen things like Northwest announcing a debut album, Northwest in this performance, and her TikTok appearances and all of that, and it feels like it's all a little bit misguided. She's not being told, maybe take a step back and build yourself up, build your skills up. She's just kind of being applauded for putting 100% effort into 0% skill, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
100%.
And I
And
feel
it's
bad
really,
for her because it's not really her fault.
it's unfortunate to see. And I hope that at least good things can come out of it for her. I mean, again, she's a child, so like her work is gonna improve. But like even her feature on Kanye's album, people liked it. Like it was a really big part of like that whole thing, and it went viral, and people thought that like her song on it was actually good, myself included. I genuinely enjoy it. But I think that it's bad to keep this kind of cycle of just handing things over in a way that's not really teaching anything at all, in my
Yeah.
eyes.
To me, the most disrespectful part of the performance was the costume. She could have gotten away with whatever happened on stage had she not been dressed like that, in my opinion. I feel like people would have been a lot more sympathetic if they were like, oh, she's just nervous, like, it's her first time, whatever. Her costume was a blatant slap in the face to the entire production. I'm so sorry it was. It was yellow sweatshirt, yellow sweat shorts. Like, I have seen more Simba-like outfits at the Disney store, like in Orlando at Disney Springs, like with an actual Simba hoodie, versus whatever situation that was. And you can only imagine that her parents specifically one parent, had something to do with that in his fashion line and whatever else he might have wanted to promote subliminally through that. So it's like you're using your kid as this vessel to promote your brand. Maybe she even wanted to have that and make a statement. But sometimes you need to teach kids that there are rules and regulations. There are parameters to things, especially when it's a production so many people have put so much work into. You can't just go and stand there in a sweatshirt. It reduces like the illusion that you're supposed to be creating when you're seeing a production like that. You want to suspend your disbelief. You want to be transported into this world, especially for children in the audience. It's like, what is she doing dressed like she's going to Target? It's weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
So that's that on that performance. But, you know, Northwest, Blue Ivy are not the only Nepo babies loose in the world. And a lot of them actually have a lot of talent, and they've utilized the connections that they've had from their parents, the platform they were given at birth, the privilege to hone a craft. And I think that's a big difference to draw as well. And of course, like, an adult in the industry is going to have far more opportunity to have honed their craft in the past than someone who's just starting out as a kid. That's also something to note because the comparison isn't exactly fair. But for example, like Maya Rudolph kind of came up. I mean, sorry, not Rudolph. Maya
Her
Hawke.
too, actually. Yeah,
Maya Rudolph
both of
too.
them.
I didn't know she was a Nepo baby. Is
She's
she?
also a Nepo baby, yeah.
Okay, so Maya Rudolph, go off. Love her. Didn't even know that. Maya Rudolph, Maya Hawke, like, those are examples of people who kind of came up into the scene probably because of the connections their parents had, but have genuinely, like, put in the work. Maud Apatow did an incredible performance in Euphoria. I thought she was really good. So many people have broken into the industry because of those reasons, but I think also in acting, like, it can kind of be harder to get away with subpar performance.
I think it's an interesting thing to see what it looks like across different industries. Maya Rudolph's mom is Minnie Riperton, who was a Black American singer. And so I do think it's an interesting thing to see. I think it's very easy to fake a music career or to create a music career on not that much talent, because we see it.
Yeah.
We talked about how it happens with influencers and things like that as well. And especially with a Nepo baby, I think they have even more power and influence to kind of get them to work with the right people who will make them sound really good, because we have the technology now to like kind of move around what we need and like fix the visuals and make it really good branding that at a certain point it doesn't really matter what they sound like.
Yeah.
But when it comes to acting, I feel like if you're a bad actor, you can tell. And no matter how many people you know in the industry, I think filmmakers and film producers want, at a certain point, it's a kind of a battle between like wanting their film or TV show to succeed and wanting people to see it, and also wanting people to genuinely see it as a piece of art. And I think when they put like big names that like just don't really tell the story the way it's intended or in a way that people like, you can tell, and it makes views tank and it makes people make fun of it. So I think that there's a certain amount of appreciation for the craft when it comes to people in the like film TV industry that maybe might not exist so much for music. I think it's a little bit more transparent if you have talent or not and how you use it.
I think that's what inherently bothers me so much about the music industry, that talent is not a qualifying factor anymore. And maybe it never was. Maybe it was always something that you could work around, but it's just become so much easier to work around it and to pretend that you didn't, like you just said. And in acting, like, I mean, you can just tell the amount of prestige that goes into even the smallest or simplest acting productions. People take it really seriously. Whereas a lot of times in music, I think you say you're a musician or you're making music, you're recording, people kind of look at you like, okay, like, what's the point, you know? So I wish that music wasn't as devalued as it is. You also see this in the fact that no one's buying physical CDs or records unless it's like a special collector's item. And obviously that changed with digital downloads and streaming, but people just don't think that it's worth it to pay for individual songs, to pay for individual albums for their artists. even their favorite artists, if it's just accessible to them through one subscription on a streaming platform. And as a consumer, I 1000% understand that. Things are already so expensive. Like, am I going to, get a coffee while I'm out, or am I going to buy someone's album that I don't know personally? It's like that is almost a price comparison at that point. And it's ridiculous because you look at something like visual art or even acting, like, you have to, I guess this is kind of happening with acting too, with the streaming of movies and TV shows. This is starting to happen in the same way, but I feel like that rollout and the compensation for those actors has been different because from the beginning, actors are getting paid up front for their participation in the movie, regardless of how the movie performs. Whereas artists, we only get paid if the music performs well. Or if you're lucky and you're with a major label, you get a huge advance. But then if your music does not perform well, to recoup on that advance, you owe them money.
Yeah. I don't know
you
if
are
you
effectively not getting paid for your work, period, until it pays you back. And it's so impossible at this point to even make a livable income off of streams alone unless you're in the top 5% of artists, that it feels kind of just dystopian. Like, music is so devalued. Whereas at a flea market, you buy a piece of art that someone threw together in their garage and they can charge you whatever you want for it, and people buy it. But people will not do that for random artists in the music world. They won't.
I think the reason why is because they assume that we suck.
They do.
I think there's been so much because it's so easily accessible. Like, with an artist, someone can say, like, a visual artist, someone can say, like, I'm an artist. But, like, you can physically see their work and decide very quickly whether or not you like it. But generally, artists were, like, consistently putting out music or trying to consistently put out music. And it's so oversaturated. And, like, there's always going to be somebody better than you, or who kind of sounds like you, or who you sound like. And I think that there's an automatic assumption, like that phrase, like, SoundCloud rapper or like SoundCloud artist, for the longest time was such a negative connotation. It still kind of is, because the assumption was, if you're making music and you are not currently a big artist signed to a label, you probably suck. Which is a rough thing for people trying to start their careers. But I think
it gives
also
people nowhere to even, like, start,
Yeah. I think there was one thing I saw from this week from a John Bellion interview where he was talking about what his life has been like as an artist and trying to make money, and the ways that that works for a touring artist. And he was talking about Live Nation and kind of how his contract works, and how he didn't really know how his contract worked until recently, which is kind of crazy, but that's also a thing that is really prevalent in the industry. Artists are signing these contracts that we think are going to be helpful for us, and actually every other person is making money off of you, and the artist makes the least amount. So it's an interesting thing to see.
That kind of, structure has been so normalized in the music industry for decades, but it's just only been exacerbated by basically eliminating the income source that used to come with selling your actual music. I think there's something to be said about how gallery spaces, for example, like, that acts as a gatekeeper, similar to how a music label can act as a gatekeeper to get the funding or the exposure that you need, right? However, in a gallery, you go through the door. If they like your art portfolio, if you have the connection to talk to someone, they take a percentage of your art sales. But anyone who walks through the door of that gallery will see your art indiscriminately. And with a record label, that's not the case. They can prevent you from releasing. They can not actually spend that money in your marketing budget. If you don't recoup, they can come after you. Like, there's so many elements of it that are not comparable to any other industry, with the way that the abuse is so integral to the core of the business model. That's just how it's been set up. And it also is about, I think, the fact that we no longer have tangible elements of selling our music because all of it's digital. With visual art, like we were saying, it's something still tangible that you can hold, that you can see, that you can judge for your own. But the fact that we don't have that anymore devalues it further.
I agree. I don't know what that's going to look like in the next couple of years in terms of valuing us and our music, but only time will tell.
Yeah. All right, let's go into a quick commercial break before our next segment. Hey guys, welcome back. We're going into our next segment of the Jasmine Ortiz show. You're here with Jasmine Ortiz and Jordy Polycarp. So, the theme of this week's episode is navigating male dominated industries. This can be within your own industry of music, in a specific genre like reggaeton, hip hop, something like that, or it can also be in other industries. So, just to get into this conversation, I wanted to talk a little bit about, some of the statistics that you and I were talking about prior to this.
Mhm.
So I know you had brought up that, certain percentages of each job in the music industry are typically taken up by men, specifically highest in production, engineering, and even songwriting.
Yeah.
So what do you want to think about that?
So there was a study that was put out by Billboard, and kind of a breakdown of what 2023 looked like for the industry, based on gender and how that was split among the different kind of subgenres of the industry, right? So a couple of stats that popped up were, of the 164 artists that ended up appearing on the Hot 100 Billboard for the year-end chart, 64.6% of them were men, 34.8% were women, and 0.6% were non-binary. A couple other ones were across a 12-year sample, and were taking up women were most likely to be in the pop genre overall. Least likely genres that they were in were alternative at 14.4% were women, and hip hop, which is 14.9% were women. As well, across that same study, for songwriters, women were most likely to write in the pop section. They take up about 20% of
Wow.
only 20% of pop songwriters for 2023 were women, and that's the highest percentage. Dance or electronic music, 19.6%. Hip hop was 7.5%, and country was 9.9%.
It's crazy because a lot of times in the industry, men will try to make us feel smaller by insinuating all you can do is sing and songwrite. All you can do is those two things, like because they're seen almost as feminine, singing or songwriting. We're not even the majority of the feminine,
not at all,
quote unquote feminine elements of this industry. So we're not even 50-50. We're not even close. So it's so interesting and kind of crazy to see these percentages and actually digest them, because there's this perception of the female pop star and the negative connotations that are associated with that, like being, less intelligent or less strategic or selling out or being mainstream or hypersexualized, or all those negative connotations that impact female artists that male artists don't even really have to think about. Male artists don't even really have to think about how their physical appearance is presented. You'll notice that there are a lot more male artists outside of typical beauty standards than there are female artists outside of typical beauty standards. That's just a thing that has been prevalent across all genres.
I think a lot of it goes into who is told they can succeed in the music industry. And I feel like there will always be a gender aspect, and there will always be a cultural aspect. Even down to I feel like these percentages kind of showed themselves in our educational experience as well. From what I saw of the demographic of people that we were around going through our music education, this is also what it kind of looked like. Down to gender and race. And I think that when it comes down to who's able to succeed or who's told they can succeed, a lot of women in the industry, songwriting in particular, are kind of made to feel like our voices don't matter, or we don't have much to say, or the ways that we connect in an artistic way are somehow of lesser value. And I see it a lot in terms of the comment sections of different independent artists, social media. There's just one female band that we both know, that I remember in their comment section from a year ago. A lot of them are guitarists, and they play bass and things like that. And it was just this one clip of them like having fun on stage at like this huge festival, which like clearly they're doing really well for themselves. And it just like made me so angry to see how the comment section was just flooded with comments about their appearance. She's not even really playing. Like, people paid money for this, and it's like, yeah, they're just having fun. Like, and it's not like they're not accomplished musicians, because I know for a fact that they are, but like even the shortest little thing that makes it seem like they are not up to par with what men think an artist should be like, and especially the number of men who I checked in these comments who are not artists at all. They're not even, they have no idea. It's really unfortunate to see. But
I think there's this whole, I mean, we can talk about Instagram comments like in and of itself, because I think it's become a really dark place lately. Anytime I see a girl post an outfit video and she's wearing a skirt or a crop top or a shirt that shows a little bit of cleavage or shoulder, anything, it's like asking about inappropriate things about her sexual life, making assumptions, calling her names, essentially slut-shaming her for quite literally just appearing in an outfit you would see at a shopping mall and not blink twice. And it's this generation or this culture of this inundation of feeling okay to say whatever you want online without repercussion, without any way to stop that flooding of comments. And it becomes really disheartening. Like, I find myself, scrolling on Instagram and I see a fashion video that I like, and I click on it in the comments to see if anyone posted a link to where to get an item. And I just see like hatred, vitriol, misogyny, all these things that genuinely like hurt me to my core, because it just shows at least a percentage of where we're at as a society, that young men especially think this is acceptable language to use, even on a stranger in the internet, even hiding behind a screen. And that has just become so violently normalized, and it is violent because you can feel violated from an Instagram comment. It might not be physically hurting you, but it can absolutely leave mental and emotional scarring. Anytime a woman is succeeding at something, or even dipping a toe in something, trying something new, which we're allowed to do, by the way, some young man somewhere is commenting his absolute hatred and just spewing it out all over the comment section. That is so disheartening, and then you wonder why there's a mental health crisis in this country.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to rant because Instagram has been making me so violently upset to the point that I'm not letting myself scroll anymore because it genuinely impacts my mental health. I can't.
Yeah. It's been really unfortunate to see. And I think I have had negative comments, in particular about my body, which is crazy because I don't even get that many comments to begin with.
That's
and then like seeing some of them on TikTok in particular, like seeing anonymous accounts just like me trying to promote my music, and then there'll be like really nice comments of people who actually listen to it, and then other comments that are just like talking about my body type, which is crazy. But I think it's also an interesting thing when like women trying things or not being perfect is somehow it makes us totally unworthy of doing the thing that we are, or like our work isn't enough. So we take care of a lot of different aspects of our careers, and being a songwriter, being a producer, and like trying to wear a bunch of different hats, which we've talked about. For me, I can't tell you how many times I get the do you want to buy my beats email. And there's nothing wrong with buying beats, and I think it's really important to work with different kinds of producers to get the kind of sound that you want. And I appreciate that people are finding my stuff and thinking that they would want to hear my voice on some of their work. But also at the same time, their emails are always so, for me in particular, the emails are always so like, I need them to succeed, is how like they approach me. Yeah. It's extremely patronizing. And they're always like, who's your producer? And I'm like, it's me. And has been the whole time.
Yeah.
And my beats sometimes are better than this. Often are for me personally, I like my stuff better. And I think it's got better quality than the people who approach me so far. There are so many of these people trying to take advantage of us in the industry as well, like selling the courses and, like groups on like Facebook and LinkedIn and things like that bring in like, there's a couple of them that I'm a part of trying to like network and get to know other artists and the speakers that they bring in to do like live streams. I remember this one like sync licensing group that I'm a part of. They brought this guy in who's a really well-known producer in the industry, actually. And his advice, or part of his advice on how to get your music out there and how to like get people to find you interesting was to like his advice was to, at a party or any kind of like networking event, just start performing like in the middle of it. Or he said,
The way that,
and I quote, find a guitar and start performing for the room and they will be drawn to you. And I was like, remember that one scene from Barbie?
The way that I would kick someone out of my house if they did that.
Just start performing.
No way. Like, absolutely not. Like, okay, first of all, if everyone in that room was a musician, they're gonna look at you with the worst secondhand embarrassment of their lives.
Yes.
Like, I hate when, I mean, it's always some, like, beach dude, like, in the Barbie movie, exactly like you said, around a bonfire, bringing out the freaking acoustic guitar and singing Wonderwall. No one cares. No one wants to hear that.
Right.
That's not how you successfully entice people to support you as an artist.
It's annoying.
And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Like, you mentioned how, for example, that band that we know, they were just performing and it felt like, you know, to even gain the respect of these quote unquote like male supporters or male commenters, they would have to go above and beyond, like shred out a solo while doing a handstand, you know, wearing a crazy costume, like to even have a percentage of the respect that they give a male performer for literally just standing on a stage existing. Women have to work 10 times as hard to prove ourselves in these spaces. We already have to jump through hoops to get through the door. Once we're sitting in the engineer's seat in the recording studio, we have to suddenly talk about all the plugins that we know, all the technology we can maneuver. And it's like, I don't ever see an artist or a producer walk into a studio with a male engineer and ask them all these questions like it's a quiz. I've never seen that. But when it comes to a female instrumentalist, producer, engineer, it's always, yeah, like what guitar pedals do you use? Yeah, like can you play this for me right now? And it's just like, who am I proving it to?
Yeah, it's a prove it
Why
mentality.
do I need to prove it to you? And it's also a reason why so many women suffer from imposter syndrome. Even the most talented people I know. I suffer from imposter syndrome all the time. And it's like, I know I'm qualified logically, but then when I actually inhabit like that part of myself, there's still that fear of not being enough. And I feel like so many men go out into the world and they just like vibe. They just exist.
Because no one's told them that they suck. No one is telling men to try harder. Except for women, and they're not listening.
I went to a performance where I was supporting a friend who's actually a really incredible musician as like a pianist, but this person could not play other instruments as proficiently as they could play piano, right? They were invited to this performance to play as a lead guitarist. And this was like an experimental kind of like punk rock vibes. I'm like, okay, like whatever, like let's see what happens. And then I see this person proceed to like fake it at best. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be rude here. I'm just going to support. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I've been studying guitar for a decade and I feel insecure to get on a stage sometimes and like bust out a solo. And this individual has never studied the instrument, had full confidence just standing there, not even knowing what they're doing, and then getting full applause because of their confidence. Fake it till you make it, girls. Like, fake it till you make it. Because these people, and I'm not just saying men, like, there are other individuals who do this, but a lot of the time, like, you see our male companions in the industry just picking things up and seeing what happens, seeing what sticks. And if they're even okay to mediocre at it, they'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm great.
Yeah. It's unfortunate to see. And no, you're absolutely right.
That put it in perspective for me. And I'm like, who am I to be insecure or afraid to like show my guitar skills or even like brush them up and repolish them because I have studied this instrument versus someone who has literally no experience in it and is performing live. Yeah. That's a me problem more than it's a them problem, to be honest.
100%. And for everybody listening, this isn't even just for the music industry, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners know, but like the number of times that it extends to like job applications and things like that, which we also talk a lot about in terms of being in our 20s and trying to get jobs and things like that. Certain companies, even down to like putting in their description, depending on the company, if they're a little bit more inclusive, like for like women and people of color, if you feel like your work experience doesn't fully fit this like job description, apply anyway, is what I've seen some of the time, because they know and understand that we're not afforded the same opportunities and don't get as many jobs and internships and like chances to be in the room and things like that. And that's why it's particularly frustrating. But I hope at least that, I don't know, with these statistics being transparent and for the people who are looking for female songwriters and songwriters of color and things like that across the industry, I hope that at least they're starting to figure out ways to open the door a little bit. And off of that, I feel like there are programs and mentorships available for people trying to get their foot in the door in the industry. Like one in particular that I've seen actually is through this program called Femme It Forward, that I think is connected through Live Nation. But seeing the work that they've been able to do and trying to connect artists with like up and coming artists with established artists in the industry, and women of color trying to get into the business side of the industry. I'm glad that programs like that exist for people like us. And I hope at least that, going forward, the industry can figure out how to fix these statistics, because I think we deserve it. And I think at least our generation is starting to take it seriously, and just put themselves into the narrative and just try their best.
Yeah, absolutely. I also appreciate She Is the Music. That's another organization that like works for women empowerment in the music space, as well as Women in Music, has local chapters that do all sorts of networking and professional events. So I think if you're a musician listening to this is not to say that it's not worth trying. It's like not to make people lose hope. It's, if anything, to like enrage us to move forward and like break down those barriers, because I think the most important element in acknowledging this disparity is to break it down and dismantle it, because the only way to make these percentages change is to be the change. And as uncomfortable and unfortunate as it is that we have to be that change, other women paved the way before us to make changes that even allow us to have percentages at all.
Agreed.
I mean, other male-dominated industries, like someone that I really admire is Kelly Girardi. I follow her on Instagram. She's an astronaut. She's an author. She has a gorgeous daughter. She's really adorable. She like takes her to her astronaut launches and stuff. It's so cute. So she also does influencing sort of thing. Like she has a very high-profile platform on social media to raise awareness for other young women and girls to be able to follow in her footsteps. And a lot of people don't realize like the barriers of entry that exist in walking into those rooms. So I think it's really impressive that she's cultivated this community to inspire other young women to be able to pursue something that is maybe outside of the norm of what women usually do.
Yeah, I think we need to start creating these spaces. Not even that not like it hasn't started already, but I think we should be continuing to foster this kind of community and create doors for each other. I feel like the New York community of artists in particular, from what I have seen, has been doing a lot of this lately. Even down to like my personal friends, but also like wider areas. The number of events I see nowadays of like people of color trying to get their friends who are really talented into a room and create venues and events and things like that, and showcases, and reaching out to artists that they don't know but they find and through word of mouth. And I feel like I really appreciate being able to see this nowadays. And I think that if we are able to just kind of keep communicating with each other and figure out how to uplift each other a little bit better, I'm hoping that these statistics will get better. And they already are. Based on from what I had seen, these statistics and the same ones from like a couple of years ago, the comparison is that some of them actually doubled, but even still, like it's such a small percentage of women and non-binary people in particular and people of color in certain parts of the industry. It's always getting better, but it's not nearly fast enough. And I think we deserve that. So if we can just kind of keep figuring out ways to protect each other and uplift each other and value each other without needing levels of perfection, I think it would be a really important thing.
And open the doors for each other. I think that's really important. Like, hire your friends, hire people that you see not getting the opportunities elsewhere. Be the change in your own community.
Wise words.
All right, let's move into a quick commercial break before our next segment. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Jasmine Ortiz Show. We're about to move into the Uncut Diamonds segment. Today, we have the one and only extremely talented Hailey Fishberger, currently residing in Los Angeles, California. Welcome, Hailey. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Jasmine. It's an honor.
So Hailey and I went to college together at Frost School of Music, University of Miami. She's an incredible, amazing pop artist, songwriter, singer, producer. And I also know that you're an incredible dancer too. That's something I want to ask you about. But first, Hailey, can you introduce yourself to our audience? Where are you from? What is your story?
Of course, yes. So, was born in New York, but I say I grew up in Miami because that's kind of where I found, who I was as an artist, who I was as a person, honestly. And I have been writing ever since, the cliche age of like 6. I just picked up like an out-of-tune guitar that I found in my parents' closet and just would kind of first write about, crushes and things that I was too shy to talk about. And then, when I moved to Miami, I started performing, and that became a huge love of mine because it honestly felt like exposure therapy because I was a pretty shy kid in elementary school. And so just being out in the Miami gig scene was so much fun and exhilarating. And then I'd say the production element, I dove into at University of Miami, mainly because I wanted to use the big fancy studio. So I switched my major to music production, kind of on a whim. And then it was a bit before I, was able to call myself a producer. I think just inner stuff. And eventually then, especially when I moved to LA 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. Well,
that's my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's when I was like,
That's
you
insane.
could be multiple things. You could be artist, songwriter, producer, dancer sometimes. Then I became artist, songwriter, producer, and have been performing out here and co-writing and doing the thing.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is something Jordy and I have talked about a lot on the show. Women especially suffer from imposter syndrome, I think the most. And it's something that I've had to deal with a lot also, like as an instrumentalist and producer. I think there's always those hoops you jump through when you walk into a studio space. And they're like, where's the engineer? And you're like, right here.
Yeah, we're like, oh, you the singer? It's like, yes,
I always get that question. And I'm never, afraid to say, yeah, I love singing. That's one of my main passions. But at the same time, we're allowed to be multifaceted. I think that's something super overlooked with many female artists.
Absolutely.
So I actually want to ask a bit more about your experience with Miami and growing up here. How did you first get into the gig scene, for anyone listening who might be curious about how to even get started there?
Yeah, so at first I started out doing any open mic that would let me in because I was under the age of 18. So my mom would come with me. She was like my roadie, and she would help lug my massive keyboard. And I honestly started out playing some like warehouses and can't even remember. Actually, I do remember. There was one kind of it looked like it was in a parking lot. I remember that being one of my like first open mics in Miami. And I would be the youngest one there. The crowd would be a lot of like older men in their 60s. But I would go up and it fed my soul and my heart. And so then after that, I think my senior year of high school, I made a list of all the places I wanted to perform at and just kind of gathered research. And I would have my friends go with me. We would go like hotel to hotel on South Beach being like, do you have live music? If not, here's my business card. And I had these little business cards. So that's how I started out. And then from then on, it was just a matter of the reaching out and just putting on the manager hat, because I just loved performing any chance I could get.
That's incredible. I love that. Are any of these warehouses still around? The ones that you used to perform in back in the day?
I don't know. One of them is in Wynwood. And one of them, though, that was later on during college. It was like this is a funny gig. It was like this grand opening of this creative space. I don't know if it's still there. And my mom was coming with her friends that were visiting from like the suburbs of New York. And we didn't realize that it was like kind of a variety show. So right before me, there was like an erotic dance thing. And so her friends were like, and I'm here singing my ballads. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And her friends are like, this is great. So,
hey, anyone from New York or around New York, I feel like they're just used to rolling with the punches. Like,
exactly.
You can just see anything on stage and be like, you know what? Like, I can see an abstract kind of appreciation for that, regardless of what it is.
You got your dance and you got your ballads, everything.
Yeah, I love that. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit more about your experience now as an artist living in Los Angeles. How has that scene been compared to what you experienced in Miami?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey, as they say.
Yeah.
I think when I first moved here, I definitely felt like a little fish in a big pond because it's so exciting. And everyone you meet, most people are, in the arts in some way, whether they're a producer, an artist, an actor, or a dancer. And there was a lot of people kind of on the same journey. And so it's easy to feel kind of like, okay, wait, what am I doing again? What's going on? And so there's a bit of that at first, but then I found it was very exciting out here, because there's so many, venues and so many potential collaborations, and you never know, when you're on the precipice of, a really cool song that you made with someone or a performance that makes you go, whoa, that was really special. And so it's been cool to be out here. You kind of find the people you click with, and you also kind of find your steadiness out here. I think steadiness is something that was for sure, it was definitely, I had to go out and kind of find it on my own out here.
And by steadiness, do you mean like a sense of community or like a steady gig that you could rely on or a steady like routine?
Yeah, kind of everything. It's like things that remind you why you do this in the first place, things that remind you how much you love it, I guess. Yeah.
That keep you like steadfast in this path. I get it.
Exactly. And it's been really cool to also meet a lot of other women in the production space and the engineering space out here. That was something that I didn't even realize that, I hadn't even met too many in Miami, but then you realize like we're everywhere. And then you realize like, I feel like once you start meeting people in that space, you're like, oh wait, that she produces and she mixes, and it's like, oh wow, there's a lot of us, which is really cool. And so
I think that's awesome. It must feel really refreshing getting to see that in a different city, because I definitely don't have that same experience here a lot of the time. And not that I disregard any of the collaborators or producers that I've worked with in the past. I think they're all incredible, but it would be nice to have some more representation when I'm in the studio. I just think it would add another degree of comfort. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It just makes it more fun too. Yeah. LA and I are friends now. I think it's funny. I say that LA kind of slaps you a little bit before it hugs you. So when I first moved here, I got in like a hit and run car accident on like Valentine's Day.
Oh my god. That sounds like the middle of a movie. That sounds like a movie.
It felt like a movie. I'm like, what's going on, LA? Where's my, montage of strolling down, Hollywood Boulevard or whatever they do in the movies. But it did make me appreciate just kind of the adventure of it all and embrace the chaos of it all. LA is always a good time. And there's so many cool people out here too. Like so many, I feel like, just personalities and people with all different backgrounds, which is awesome.
That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So since moving to LA and continuing your artist career, what do you feel and who in your life do you feel inspires you the most?
It's a good question. I'd say it's a combination of the people that I've grown up with. There's certain friends and people in my family that have always kind of ingrained in me to be, unapologetic and authentic. And, if you're the one with the weird humor, the one, just kind of the quirky one, like that's okay. And so that's inspired me in that way to just kind of, stay rooted in identity, even if it's always changing. And then as far as artists, I would say there's definitely some people I always go back to, like Sarah Bareilles. She's someone that inspired me to write in the first place. I would like listen to her ballads and cry in middle school.
I totally see that. I see that in you. That's really cool.
Yeah, so I would say her on the songwriting and performer front. And then also someone who inspires me a lot out here, her name is Simone Torres. She's an amazing vocal producer and also an artist. And I always found it really, really cool how she balances the two. And she's still, she's able to connect with so many people and help their projects come to life, but she also makes her projects come to life. And I've gone to a couple of her workshops out here. She's hosted some networking things for women in the production and music space, and just a nice person too. So she's definitely inspiring as someone who kind of holds space for all different areas of the music world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's so important in a community to hold that space for people who are looking to connect with other like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
I honestly think that's one of the things I miss the most about being at Frost, because that was such an insular, supportive community that it felt like there was always, time to hear someone out. There was always some sort of musical event or collaboration going on.
No, it's definitely a scavenger hunt to find, and that sense of community. I think everywhere, even in LA, because there's like the broad community, but then it is more of a journey to find the type of community, like that we had at Frost, the one that makes you feel like, oh, like I'm a part of something, and and all that.
And that's what was so special about it. And I mean, even how we connected, and then we ended up, doing some dance classes together.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience with Vixen and like just how your dance history has helped you as an artist?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was so fun senior year.
Awesome.
You're awesome. I remember.
You're the one who inspired me actually to continue dancing, and I still take dance classes at a studio.
I love that. That makes me so happy. Yes. So dance was something I had done it when I was really young, like some of the ballet and the jazz and, like the formal types of dance. And when I moved to Miami, I remember my friends, shout out Sophia Levy. She's like, girl, you got to learn how to dance, if we're going to be out and about in Miami. And I was like, what do you mean? I do know how to dance. She's like, no, like really dance. Because I was a little uptight suburban mouse. And then I found this workout called Vixen, and it kind of became my gym in a way. I would go and I call it, it's basically hip hop cardio meets like Beyonce at, the Super Bowl halftime show. So there's an element of just kind of going for it and full sending it and being a performer. So I just started to do that as my workout, and it eventually helped me be more present and be more, I want to say zesty, when I would go on stage. It gave me that sense of I guess permission to be a little bit bolder instead of trying to be kind of digestible or kind of soft. So it helped me tap into that, and it helped me honestly when I was starting to write more fiery songs. Like I'm allowed to write my ballads, but I'm also allowed to maybe write kind of a dramatic extra song. So
I love that. I think if there's any place you should be extra, it's in your artistry. It's investing in yourself and your self-expression.
Exactly.
I mean, speaking of that, I want to talk about your latest single, which is self-produced and called Bat Signals. I'm so intrigued by this title. I love it. I think it's awesome. What inspired that, and what is the song about?
Yeah, what inspired the title and the song? Let's see. So, the title was one of those ones. Usually, I'm somewhat quick to pick a title, but this one, I was performing it out and about, and I still hadn't had a title yet. And I would just call it random things, and people were like, what's this called? I'm like, today it's called this. Today it's called that. So then I was thinking of the overall mood of the song, and it felt a little bit, more edgy and a little bit, I want to say super villainy, but obviously in a still kind way, no mean energy here, but I was thinking of, what inspired it. And it's basically about, say someone you had a history with comes back, but it's not in the way that, is as grand as it should be. Because as a romantic, it's like, if you're going to come back with like a letter or a speech or something bold. Yeah. So I wrote that song as kind of as an anthem for people that are proud of how they've moved on, but when they do get that call, it's like they just want to scream. So in a way, that reach out is kind of like a bat signal. Like, where are you coming from? I'm just starting to heal,
Yeah. And why are you doing it in such an obscure, like distant way? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, what is this?
I love that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So what is your music making process like when you're going about creating, ideating, producing a song?
Yeah. So usually it'll start off as, it's kind of like an itch in a way. Like I'll be feeling like there's something here that I feel like I need to explain somehow in a song. And that'll just kind of pop into my gut, my mind. And then usually as I'm doing something else, whether it's driving or honestly in the shower, I'll start actually, thinking of a melody, like something will kind of be looping in my head. A lot of the time lately, I haven't really been sitting myself down and being like, okay, we are going to write this song or that song. It's usually kind of been over the course of a week or a couple weeks when I'm just kind of daydreaming or just in my feels. I'll strengthen some things together. And then eventually, I would say after I perform it a few times and feel how that's sitting, then I'll start to experiment if I am producing it with sounds. And I'm a piano girl, so a lot of the time I will start, with the piano chords when I start to produce it.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me too.
Yeah, that's been new though, is the whole co-writing process. Because out here, and I'm sure in big cities like Miami too, I remember the co-writing process was a lot like you would start writing with someone, maybe you didn't know them so well, and you would just make something from scratch, and you didn't have the course of 2 weeks. You would kind of do it all in a day or a couple days. That was always cool because you would get to know someone so fast through that. So
yeah,
it's another process. Yeah,
well, I definitely get what you're saying as far as like starting with the piano chords. I usually tend to do that too when I'm producing something.
Yeah,
I just feel like it grounds the production, and you can end up, using any sort of instrument sample that you want, but it really helps guide where the melody needs to go.
Yeah, no, and that's that depth which you have very much in your music. You got all those epic melodies.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like for me, songwriting definitely starts with the melody. I can come up with any sort of random lyric to fill in the blanks. Usually it'll start from like a feeling first, and then a melody will, form out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Alchemy.
So how has your journey as an independent artist looked like? Like, what has that looked like as far as releasing, making content, making videos, branding yourself?
Yeah. It's definitely been a jungle. In a fun way.
I get that. I totally get that. In a fun way.
Yeah, it's looked like branding and rebranding, and I went through a few different stage names. I started out with Hailey Michelle. I then went to Hailey Fishberger. Then I went during the pandemic, my little HA1EY alter ego.
Oh, yeah.
And then I came back to Hailey Fishberger, which is my, legal name, mainly because I was like, you know what? I just kind of want to be real in that. It felt cool because it is, on more of the bizarre side of names. So I was like, if I could, just own this and commit to it, it just kind of shows like, oh, you don't necessarily have to have the coolest name or the coolest, what's the word? I guess coolest approach, which is kind of been less pressure, which has been nice. But as far as the independent artist grind, it definitely looked like juggling a ton. So juggling, booking the gigs and kind of tapping into that alter ego, like kind of the follow-ups and the reaching out. So that definitely helped me grow in that way. And then as far as the content, I think I have found lately that when I kind of trust my first instinct rather than going off what I should be creating or what I should be putting out there to promote, that's when it's, helped it feel sustainable and also just kind of more honest. So that's kind of what I've been doing now, but it's definitely still a balance with that. Because as someone who loves like live performing and just being in person and connecting with people that way, it's definitely been a process to convert that to then like the digital world.
Yeah, I absolutely understand that too. I feel the same way. I think it's a very like fine line to walk between maintaining your sanity and, continuing to produce content at a high level, high consistency.
Exactly.
So I think the more authentic that you keep it, which is why like I've been really enjoying this podcast because I'm able to just speak my mind on things that are important to me.
Yeah.
That has been so much healthier for me as far as content creation goes versus, trying to portray something that can feel artificial,
Exactly.
So I think it's really important to just be who you are and show up as yourself. Even if you're not having the best day, honestly, like show up as that person too.
Yeah, it's so refreshing too, like, hey guys, like honestly, it's been a crazy day. It's been a crazy, but we're here, we're humaning.
Yeah, I go on TikTok just like, I just had an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
It's time to unpack that and keep going with my day.
Exactly.
So I think it's like this silent camaraderie that we're hopefully building with each other.
I feel that. And you're definitely doing that with the show. I feel that in my heart. So, yeah.
I'm so happy to hear
that.
that.
As far as the release schedule in that whole game, I've been pushing myself lately to just put stuff out, which I've definitely kind of gone the other approach of like, okay, no, I need to wait until, either the mix sounds super ready or I need to wait until, the numbers are at this perfect level. But lately I've been like, I made this thing. I want to put it out. We'll promote it. We'll do the best we can. But I think I definitely want to be the kind of artist that, throws spaghetti at the wall rather than letting the spaghetti sit in the pot. So
you have an upcoming single called Having Fun is Hot. So what is that about? I love the title.
Thank you. Yes, it's been a year of fun titles.
Yes,
so
I was going to say.
That was one of those songs that came from I was in Denver for this writing camp and I was on the bus to the airport and it had been a few months since, the inception of Bat Signals and since, honestly, a pretty brutal breakup, as some of us artists and creatives go through. And I was sitting on this bus and I was looking at the window and I was like, wait, I feel good. Like, I feel good inside. Like, I feel happy right now. And it was an interesting realization, like I'm having fun. That's cool. So I wanted to write a song kind of celebrating that time that comes after the valley. You're like, I'm starting to feel good again. Like I'm feeling flirty. I'm feeling somewhat myself. And I wanted to pick a title that kind of encapsulated just the ridiculousness of just the whole, I don't even know, just life.
Yeah, I mean, life is pretty ridiculous.
Exactly. And I was like, I wanted to keep it refreshing and simple in a way. So having fun is hot was, basically as is. I was playing it acoustically on the piano when I would perform, and then I had heard a really fun pop production, and I wanted to make the whole production process collaborative and fun. So I connected with this one producer, Ives, and it was like one of the most fun creation processes ever, because he was very kind of experimental with the sounds we would pick. Like one of the sounds is us banging pans on the floor.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so the whole process was pretty fun and cool to mix that into the whole ballad stuff I was doing as a little like palate cleanser, I guess.
So is the vibe of this song, would you say, like more upbeat, avant-garde,
For sure.
poppy? Okay.
Yeah, definitely pop with, I'd say, like witty pop.
Okay, that's so cool. I mean, witty pop is the best kind of pop.
Right? You get it.
Yes.
You get it. You're a witty pop girl.
I am obsessed with it, yes.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear it. I can't wait for our audience to hear it. You guys are going to hear a little bit of Having Fun is Hot in a few minutes. Yeah. Ask you one more question just to tie into the discussion that I had with Jordy earlier in the show. How has your experience been being a woman in a typically male-dominated industry, especially in the fields of production, songwriting, engineering?
Yeah, amazing question. So it's something that I didn't realize really affected me until later on, as I was starting to take more of like the leadership role in producing for myself and producing for other people. I didn't realize that it did affect me not really seeing too many, women in the producer chair or in the engineer chair. Even I love Frost, but there was, even the professors that taught those courses. Yeah, and I think in the music production program, I think it's definitely improved with the amount of women and gender expansive people in schools. But even when we were in college, it was male dominated in the studio. And so
that's what Jordy and I were saying too. Like, even, the demographics that are representative of the music industry were also what we experienced in our classes. And it also kind of goes to show like the barrier of entry that women face even getting to higher education in music because of that imposter syndrome, because of maybe a lack of self-belief that they are qualified. A lot of the time women are qualified, but they don't believe that they are.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's I was thinking about it recently. I was like, why has it been assigned, mainly to men, these roles? It's like, it's creative. It's, it's, in the case of engineering, it's like, understanding levels and stuff like that. But I'm like, why is that male? Like, it makes no sense. And so it's just kind of, it's funny a little bit to me. That obviously not funny. It's definitely a problem.
It's ironic. But
it's ironic. It's like, wait. It's not like you're like fighting a bear. Not women would be amazing at fighting bears. But it's just interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that like the music industry is something that has been male dominated, especially as women are known to like be amazing creatives and really amazing thinkers, which is something that's so necessary in music. I think it's as I've been seeing, women in leadership roles and being badasses in the studio, it's definitely helped me kind of face some of that imposter syndrome. But yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird.
Absolutely. I mean, even, hundreds of years ago, like men would play women's roles in theater. It's always been exclusive of women, the arts, because anything that was outside of homemaking was not considered, feminine or ladylike. And it's ironic now, especially in today's context, because singing, songwriting, those things are seen as inherently feminine, but we don't even make up the majority of people who do that in the industry.
Yeah.
Which is why it's even more ironic. And I see what you're saying with like, creativity sort of being seen as a more feminine trait, also sensitivity that a lot of artists tend to hold.
Yeah.
And the fact that like society views it that way, but the industry isn't even remotely reflective of that it's something for sure.
It's like we're all everything. Like, we're all sensitive. We're all this. Every person has that complexity. And so it's like all of that and everyone should be represented if the music we're listening to has all that seeped into it. So,
Right.
I remember, growing up, I remember listening to a bunch of songs, and then as I, was starting to Google, who made this? Who made this? I'm like, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how has the production journey been for you? Because you're so awesome with that, and just so multifaceted as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has been battling imposter syndrome and reminding myself, like, I did go to school for this. I understand what I'm doing. I can do it for myself. I can do it for other people. I think the biggest hurdle, kind of like what you mentioned, is doing it for other people. And, trusting yourself and allowing them to trust you with their work and creativity.
Yeah. No, it is such a hurdle for sure. Because it's like, it's something I've been trying to work on this season as I'm like, the production projects are coming. It's like, oh wait, just because I have this doubt, like just because I'm, let's say I'm editing this person's vocal or I'm doing this thing and I'm like, dude, I can't, I'm having trouble, like I must not be at the level I should be. It's like, oh wait, that's not true. I don't have to believe that just because I thought it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time we're our own worst enemy, and it takes a lot of conscientious, purposeful unlearning and like reprogramming to actually get out of that.
Exactly.
Well, Hailey, I'm so happy to hear that everything's going so well in LA. I'm so excited to hear your upcoming release. Can you share with us how everyone can find you on socials and any upcoming shows you might be doing?
Yeah, so I'm on the socials. I'm on Instagram. My name, Hailey Fishberger. I am on Spotify. I'm on Apple Music, all your streaming favorites. And I have a fun performance season coming up. I'm playing Saturdays at 7, June 15th in LA. And then playing some fun other shows. I'm playing this one. I'm the musical guest at this comedy show called It Might Get Dark, which will be fun. So all that I'll be posting about, and then the release coming up June 21st.
Yay! Okay, so exciting. That's really soon. Mark your calendars, everyone. You can find Hailey Fishberger at HaileyFishberger. Get ready for her next single, Having Fun is Hot. We're going to hear it right now.
What's up, people? It's Hailey Fishberger, an artist coming at you live from Los Angeles. Here's a snippet of my upcoming single, Having Fun is Hot, dropping June 21st. Thanks for having me on the show. Keep it Jasmine.
Was a whisper of a thing blowing in the wind, only flying high when you would listen. I was a shell of myself in your quicksand bed, like you were the one, but you're just a man. Seriously heavy-headed everywhere I went, tinted grayscale, gray hair all of the time. Seriously heavy-handed when I took back my spirit. Hot, my heart, so hot, girl, having fun is underrated. Oh, what a way to rebel. Yeah, I'm done. I graduated from being under your spell. TV show taste. I filtered opinions, so I sounded more basic. But what kind of monster watches SNL and hates it? You were seriously heavy-headed, never going out 'cause it was too late, too far, wasting your time. Seriously heavy-handed when I took back my spirit. Hot, my heart, so hot, girl, having fun is underrated. Oh, what a way to rebel.
Hey guys, welcome back. We're moving into our last segment. This is our community corner where you guys ask us questions and we give you advice. So we have a couple interesting ones today. Y'all, we're getting spicy. One that I want to start off with, which is actually, I think, pretty serious in nature and should be addressed immediately. Someone asked, what do you do when your boyfriend wants to control what you can and cannot wear, especially since summer's coming up with shorts, dresses, crop tops, etc.? Okay, I think from the get-go, as someone who is a very expressive person with how I dress, as an artist, as someone who chooses to wear, you know, sometimes more sensual or provocative looks, just because it's fun, because I can, because, like, there's no rules, why should there be? Within reason, I guess. This is already like a deal breaker for me in a relationship. I cannot be with someone who is going to try to tell me how to live my life. As long as I'm respecting them, respecting the sanctity of our relationship, not crossing those boundaries, how I present myself is my business and my business alone. And if you want to be my partner and enjoy that, congratulations. If not, it's not for you.
Mhm.
You know, it's for me. So that's just my take on it. I think that's like an absolute red flag, absolute do not pass go, like 100% deal breaker for me. Other people might not feel the same way. I don't know.
I think it should be a deal breaker. I think that anyone who feels comfortable trolling you in your like regular daily life is very odd. At baseline, I think that there's a lot of things that go into that, and I feel like I don't understand why. If it were me personally, I'd be asking questions like, why do you feel like you have jurisdiction over my body and what I look like and how I present myself? And I've seen this argument a lot, especially on TikTok, of like people saying that, oh, if she dresses a certain way, she doesn't respect you as a man. And I'm like, if you were
When
a
did
man,
we go back
you
to
wouldn't need me
1960?
to. Right. I'm like, if you were a man, like, you wouldn't feel so threatened by me stepping out, feeling comfortable, and doing what I want, and being seen as attractive or feeling attractive. I don't really understand. I think it's a very small-minded mindset, and it, honestly, I find it really disgusting. Like, any opinions even towards it, I'm like,
Yeah.
you're sad.
For me, the only exception would be if you're like meeting their parents and they have very different views, or you're going to church, or like a specific event that requires a dress code, or you're going to visit them at work and they're like, hey, I know you love to wear XYZ, maybe wear like business casual, you know? Like those kind of things that have to do with being quote unquote socially acceptable in specific situations, I think is okay. Because if anything, it's your partner like saving you the embarrassment of feeling out of place or like awkward, or being prejudged for the wrong reasons. I don't think that's a problem. But if it's literally just to like go to Target, live your life, go out with your girlfriends, none of those things should be under their jurisdiction if they trust you and love you as an individual. Because if I just don't understand why also sometimes men feel the need to change their partner when they're in a relationship with them. Like, okay, you were this sexy, attractive, independent woman when I met you. Now I'm gonna lock you up and keep you at home.
Yeah, I'm
and
like,
can
you
wear
met me
pajamas
like
all
this.
Day. It's like you met me. You met me because I was outside.
Yeah, you liked me because I looked like this.
Like, what are you talking about? And now that's like, well, I don't want other men looking at you like this. Don't you want the pride in saying that's my girl and you can't have her?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. I'd rather a man bring that energy and be like, yes, she looks good, and what?
So, like, it's important to have a partner who can, like, champion you and make you feel safe and supported, but not, like, escalate and make things worse for you because of their own ego for trying to defend their woman and things like that. So, long story short, I feel like my answer for so many of these questions is always dump him. Like, dump him.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this one is like inexcusable. Like, you cannot go forward with someone like this. If they don't give you a reason and very specific context as to why and when and where this applies, no.
Yeah. And the potential for it to like border over into like abuse and manipulation and things like that, it's definitely pinging as a red flag. So I'm like, if that's the minimum, it's still not a great look, but also there's always a potential for danger with somebody who feels like they have a right to control you. So cut that off.
The other part of this that bothers me is like, okay, so you're basically telling me that men are so incapable of controlling their lustful thoughts that anytime you see a woman out in public wearing the things I'm not allowed to wear, you're going to lust for her. That just
Get
like
outta
creates
here.
the subversive like insecurity in that partner,
Mhm.
and it's so unnecessary.
They're just telling
and
on
disgusting.
themselves. So
Yeah, literally. It's
Get
like,
gone.
oh, I sexualize every woman that I see, so you can't look like that because I don't want other people to do that to you.
disgusting. Yeah.
No.
Bye.
Bye. Do you have any, Jordy?
Yeah. That conversation got me heated. So I'm like,
I know,
But,
me too.
yeah,
This
no.
always happens with these.
Another question that I got was, how do you balance a career with maintaining a healthy relationship?
Yeah, that one, I think that's important. I think that's something that, you know, a lot of my friends and I have talked about lately, like, especially my friends who have gone into corporate America, working 9 to 5s, like, even just struggling to find time to date, struggling to find time to see their friends, first of all,
Mhm.
get normal life responsibilities through, and then on top of that, find time to date can feel really overwhelming because it's like you already have all this time in your day between commuting, working, coming home, cooking and cleaning, organizing, doing personal administration, and then it's like, where do you have time to like meet someone? You could say the weekends, maybe go out, but then how do you meet someone in your 20s? Those are questions like I think are very ever evolving in different cities because there's different opportunities everywhere, but I think when you're already in a relationship, it can feel like, okay, how do you both continue to grow your career and support each other in doing that while also growing in the relationship? Because both of those things take so much time and dedication.
Yeah, I feel that. For me, like I'm single. I'm single. No. I'm a single person right now, and I think that when it comes to building in time into your schedule to balance your work and your friends and your passions and dating, I think for me building myself a schedule, like a physical one, kind of like how we had in college, just because I need something to keep me on track, like hour by hour. I actually, in that same schedule, I've built in dating as well. Even if I'm not using the time all the time, for me, I was like, if I want the kind of life where I can have all the things that I want, I'd rather build in time for it now. I think that it's important to value yourself and to value your time and think about what you actually need at baseline for you to feel like a normal, healthy, functioning human being who is happy and doing the things that they want to do. And I think a relationship should only add to that and support that. And if it doesn't, then either finding a new relationship or kind of reworking the schedule that you have right now. So, and for me, it's worked so far, honestly. In terms of dating, like I think in the past I have felt like my romantic connections and relationships have taken up a lot of my time because I was bad at time management. It was no fault of theirs, but I was letting it take up too much of my time and not prioritizing what I needed to. But I think as I've gotten older and been able to get down to the nitty-gritty of like what I truly want and what makes sense for my life the way it is right now and the way I want it to be, finding time that would make sense realistically to kind of like section those in. So I think it's definitely a learning curve, but if you can just devote some time to it and really put in some self-care and then figure out everything else, you'll be set.
That
From the
was
single
really
girl.
great advice. Absolutely. That was really great advice because I think it's just as important to leave time to go out and meet people as it is to maintain a relationship. I think on the other side of that, like if you're already in a relationship, maybe try incorporating each other into your work, if that's possible at all. Co-working together, if you can both work from home, is a nice way to do that, kind of body doubling with your partner. I think there can be levels of that, and obviously you need devoted quality time, but you also maybe need time where you're both doing different things in the same place.
Yeah, I think this is important.
All right, I have one more. This is about rejection and setbacks. So what advice do you have for artists who are getting rejected or facing setbacks in the industry.
That's a rough one.
So for me, I think like learning how to see the forest from the trees, so to speak, like knowing when someone is actually there to give you an opportunity or when they're there to just like pull you into the fray or lead you astray or just get money from you, like learning how to identify users very quickly, I think is one way to prevent like the rejection or the setbacks from continuing to happen because, you can feel rejected, like a business opportunity didn't pan out or a setback, like suddenly you're out money because someone was using you. Those are things that can be avoided if you live and learn from them. As far as rejection goes, like that's something that also happens all the time. Like not everyone's going to love your music. People will leave mean comments sometimes. Even you'll find your own friends and family sometimes can feel like they're not fully supportive of you. Just know that you don't need that negativity to move forward. So if you're feeling rejected from someone that you thought cared about you in your life because of the career you're pursuing, I don't think that they're worth keeping in your life moving forward. Or maybe it's worth having a conversation with them and expressing how you feel. As far as like labels, managers, things like that, and rejection, just when you fall down, get back up, try again, knock harder, bust down the door if you have to, write follow-up emails and follow-up emails and follow-up emails, like go to networking events, like be annoying almost. Not to the point that they're going to like block your email, but to the point that you're like staying consistent and on top of pursuing what you want to pursue. Because no one's going to take a one email one time and think something of it. If you want to make an impact or an impression, follow up after meeting someone in person at a networking event. Send that Instagram DM, send an email. Don't be afraid to get contact information and ask for it up front. Say, hey, I would love to reach out to you about XYZ. Make something up if there's nothing you want to reach out to them about. Just keep that relationship in your corner, and there might be a time in the future where it can be mutually beneficial.
That was really well put. Yeah. I think that it's a really important thing as an independent artist to get comfortable being annoying when it comes to trying
That's like
to
the bread and butter.
Yeah. I once had this one artist who I've kind of like been seeking mentorship for, and I guess we are kind of friends at this point. I remember I was getting off a phone call with him one time where like we were talking about like branding and image, like artist visuals and like staying authentic and things like that. And he said something along the lines of like, keep being annoying. He was like, I'm glad that you reached out as many times as you did. Like I was like, I apologizing for it. And he was like, no, because like people get busy. Like he was like doing some other stuff like in his life and like trying to figure something out. And we talked about how like sometimes persistence is a good thing. And he was like, some people are gonna hate it. That's just true, and that's fine. But he was like, I don't think you did it in a way that was annoying. Like it just seems like you care, which is a really good thing. And I was like, that's a really nice way of telling me I'm annoying. I feel like I have a habit of doing that. Just because I like to reach out to the people I admire and like tell them I love their work, and also just try to like learn from them in a way that I hope doesn't seem like I'm a scavenger, like I'm trying to like absorb too much information from them. It's just that I love what they do and I want to understand more and how I can apply it to my own work. And I think that when it comes to rejection, we have to get comfortable feeling it and receiving it, because we're going to get it a million times in this career and have. And I think that when it comes to just like feeling setbacks and feeling rejection, the music industry as a whole right now is having major setbacks. Like everyone is struggling. I can't tell you, and we've also talked about this, but I can't tell you how many like people with higher paying jobs and like the kind of jobs that I've been applying to, like all the way entry level to like the VP of marketing at this record label. There's layoffs across the whole thing. So if you're somebody in the music industry in particular and you're feeling rejection and setbacks and like getting ghosted from job opportunities and getting the interview but never hearing back or never getting the interview in the first place, it's so prevalent right now. It's scary. and I keep seeing it. It's all over my LinkedIn.
I think it leads to a discovery of a systemic issue versus an individual issue. It's not necessarily even about the merit of the individuals anymore. It's about the overhead and the profit for the companies that are hiring or firing these individuals. I also think that the labels are struggling a bit because of the streaming model, because of the social media inundation of content, and how much pressure even major labels have been under to constantly push out more and more and more. And then also how overworked their artists are feeling because of that. So I think there is like a lose-lose-lose situation kind of happening, like from the inside out. And until the people who have the power and the position to change that, change it, nothing is really going to start happening. So I think if you're in the position as an independent artist where you can't find that one position you wanted in the industry, keep reaching out, because even connections with someone who is recently laid off, someone who isn't hiring right now but might in the future, those connections can still serve you down the line. Because the industry is notoriously extremely small, if you feel comfortable doing that. Something like that is really, really important to establish roots in a connection with someone.
That's really well put. Yeah. If you guys are struggling right now, just be steadfast in what you believe in your work, because you're worth it. And I think this will, one way or another, even out. And regardless of the industry that you're in, if you're feeling that, especially if you're in your 20s and 30s, and like, we're still figuring it out, and life is going to be rough for a while, so I've been told.
Yeah.
So just stay true to what you believe in, and stay true in your passions, and keep honing your craft, and reach out, and eventually somebody will see, like, hey, like, I see how hard you're working, I see how much you care, let's connect and try to figure out something that can help uplift each other and the whole community.
Absolutely. Well, that was such a great discussion. Thank you, Jordy. Thank you to everyone who submit questions. Thank you to everyone listening. This is officially the end of episode 10. I don't know, double digits. Yay! This feels like a big moment. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of us for staying consistent with this. It's been so much fun and genuinely super cathartic to be able to express these things that have been like inside for so long.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to be creating this community where you guys can feel inspired, feel heard, feel listened to, feel related to by the things that we're talking about, because these are issues that are systemic across multiple industries, that are not exclusive to music, that are not exclusive solely to women or people of color. Across all sorts of industries, different people are facing different problems. So just goes to show that there is camaraderie in that, and we're here for each other, which I think is so important, that community.
Yeah. And we love you guys. And I love you,
yes,
Jasmine.
We love you.
And we love each other. I hope
Jordy.
that we can all uplift each other and just start feeling a lot better about this kind of stuff. So
yeah.
I'm happy.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Keep it Jasmine.